From training to performing, join our big league conversation. Welcome to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast with your host, Eric Cressey.
Welcome back to the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. I'm your host, Eric Cressey, and this is episode 94. We're coming back after a little bit of a podcast break where we had a chance to regroup and gather up some content. So some good weeks ahead here with a little bit of sports medicine focus. And I think there's some good insights in place for players, coaches, parents, but also, folks in the clinical world, sports medicine, strength and conditioning. Some really good stuff here. Starting with a guy that we had the fortune to work with this past offseason at CSP Florida. Guy's had a pretty extensive injury history, but worked hard to learn from it and get himself back on a good path, and he's doing great in the big leagues now. So we're really excited for a good guest that I think will share a lot of wisdom for folks who are going through that rehab struggle or looking to help people who are. This episode is brought to you by Owens Recovery Science. Owens Recovery Science is a single source for clinicians looking to learn and implement personalized blood flow restriction exercise and rehabilitation into their practice. Johnny Owens and his team work tirelessly to provide you with the most up-to-date, accurate information regarding BFR and its clinical and performance applications. Owens Recovery Science is not only the leader in BFR education and content, but they're also leading the charge in research with involvement in BFR clinical trials worldwide and a multi-million-dollar research grant portfolio. Don't know what BFR is? Looking to learn more about it? Go learn from the ORS crew via their one-day in-person certification courses and read their blog at owensrecoveryscience.com. And be sure to check out the Owens Recovery Science podcast, where Johnny interviews BFR researchers from around the world, in addition to the deep dives he takes and the educational team takes on specific topics, all with the practicing clinician in mind. In addition to teaching you how to integrate BFR into your practice, Owens Recovery Science also sells the equipment to help you implement BFR in the safest, most efficient manner possible. ORS is the exclusive U.S. distributor of the Delphi personalized tourniquet system for BFR, which is recognized even by the competitors as the gold standard in blood flow restricted training and is the only BFR system on professional sports workers' comp in every U.S. league. The Delphi PTS for BFR is the only research-validated device on the market, and it's recognized worldwide for its industry-leading ability to quickly and objectively determine the correct pressure to use and maintain that pressure throughout the intervention. I used the device myself heavily during my rehabilitation from a recent knee surgery, and we integrate it regularly in our baseball programs and our rehabilitation work here at Cressey Sports Performance. For a limited time, you can use the discount code CRESSEYBFR to receive $100 off on one of the Owens Recovery Science certification courses. Just go to owensrecoveryscience.com, select courses in the menu bar to see their upcoming offers, and then enter the code at checkout. Again, that's CRESSEYBFR to get $100 off. Make sure to act now as this offer expires on June 12th. Today's guest is a right-handed pitcher who played high school baseball in Florida and was drafted in the 39th round by the Cincinnati Reds. He opted not to sign, instead attending the University of Alabama. After 3 years there, he was selected in the second round of the 2010 draft by the Milwaukee Brewers. He made his major league debut in September of 2013 for the Brewers and picked up his first win in May of 2014. He made 30 starts in 2015, 32 starts in 2016, and 29 starts in 2017, only to have his 2017 season cut short by a significant shoulder injury he incurred while diving back into first base. He underwent surgery and did not play in 2018, but worked his way back to the big leagues partway through the 2019 season. He signed that offseason with the Dodgers, only to miss the 2020 season for surgery to repair a stress fracture in his back. This led him to move to Florida to train and rehab with our team at Cressey Sports Performance Florida, where I learned his story, spent time with him, and realized how much he had to offer on an interview like this. He re-signed with the Dodgers this offseason, and after a healthy and effective spring training, he earned a spot on their opening day roster. Please welcome to the show, Jimmy Nelson. Thanks for coming on the show, Jimmy.
I appreciate having me.
This is going to be a good time because I've learned your history from being around you and seeing how hard you work and how much pride you take in your craft. So it's going to be cool to share this with a larger audience.
I appreciate it.
And I know we can go pretty far down the rabbit hole in the rehab world and baseball development.
Yeah.
But I think it's good to maybe start with let's talk about Jimmy Nelson as a high school athlete. Were you a multisport athlete or were you a baseball only guy?
Yeah, it was baseball, football, basketball for me, and it was like one of those things that's kind of one sport kind of falls off. I think basketball fell off for me the earliest, and then I stopped playing football after my, I think, sophomore year, or either after my freshman or sophomore year. I stopped playing football. I can't remember which one, and then like basically from my junior year on was focusing just on baseball. But yeah, I mean, just growing up, I played those three, but pretty much every year growing up.
That's huge. Do you think that helped you, from a foundational standpoint for when later on, when it became baseball only, like, do you think it gave you a better ability to pick up new skills and things like that? Or when you look back on your multi-sport career, what do you think the biggest benefits were?
Well, I think, that's one thing that's highlighted a lot, but I think also just more so on like the mental side of it, it kind of creates a mentality of like how to work, how to be a part of a team, and like just those intangibles that you can't really measure. I think it just reinforces those. I mean, the physical development stuff is obvious, with different movement patterns and the training and everything being different, and just so that stuff is there. But in high school, sometimes the training isn't exactly sports specific. You're kind of doing pretty similar workouts for whatever sport. Might be a little bit different, but I mean, yeah, just the different movements. But overall, yeah, just those like intangibles, like I said, that you just kind of don't get, I guess, from pinholing yourself into one thing.
No doubt. And you were drafted in the 39th round out of high school and wound up going to Alabama. Describe to me Jimmy Nelson, like senior in high school. Like, what kind of a pitcher were you? What did you have to work on? And what made you think Alabama was the play for you?
Well, I was 39th round, and I mean, they made a solid offer, especially for that round, and it just wasn't enough for me to want to skip college. Coming out of high school, there's probably going to be a few more years, at least a couple more years of development in the minor leagues than there would be coming out of college. And, I was like 6'6", like 215 or 210. I'd like 210 at my freshman physical at Alabama. So there was like a lot of projectability, and I was like 87 to 90 with a good breaking ball. So I wasn't throwing super hard or anything. I was just really projectable. So I went to college, and then, which was a smart choice, I really developed physically there and mentally. And after those 3 years, even just the first year, putting on some weight, getting in on a strength conditioning program at a Division I level, and velos went up to like 92, 95 within like months of getting there. And then I had other struggles there with command stuff and learning how to use my stuff because it all started changing. But just over the years, just kind of learning that and building off that, and then kind of put it together a little bit my junior year, and so that's how it played. That's how it benefited me.
You mentioned obviously the strength conditioning side of things, which is something I think we see a lot. Guys get there, they put on 25, 30 pounds, they get a lot stronger. Yeah. I'm curious even beyond that, like what were the things that made the biggest difference that took you from a 39th rounder out of high school, to being a second rounder 3 years later? Did you think it was a mentality of pitching the SEC? Was it proving that you could shove in competitive games that mattered? Was it fastball command? Like were there both like pitching metrics and then, some of the intangibles too?
Yeah, it was all of it. I mean, it's all of it. It's not just one thing. They worked our asses off there. And I was already somebody, in high school that worked pretty hard, and then it just kind of magnified and really brought out those things when I got to Alabama. And they put you through a lot in college, or at least they did. So there was a lot of things that you can realize that you can do mentally that you might not before. And then obviously the team field and the camaraderie that there is with a college team. I mean, it's you're training and you're doing all the stuff with those guys in the fall and in the spring. Whereas in like pro ball, it's like obviously everybody has wherever they train in the off season, and then everybody is together for the season. It can be a little bit different vibe, whereas in college, a lot of times you're kind of going through those grindy workouts with the guys. So it kind of builds like some camaraderie that way and some respect among your teammates that way.
Mhm.
And then, yeah, just growing mentally as a pitcher, learning my stuff. My stuff really jumped up. I went, by the time I left Alabama, I was like I'm still 6'6", but like 250, so I put basically 40 pounds from the beginning, and I was like mid 90s, good breaking ball, and just learning how to pitch and compete, and yeah, just really competing and just learning myself and growing.
One thing I'm curious about is you're obviously a guy who's well known for having a really good breaking ball, but you also, you're able to, spin a four seam at a really high rate. You always seem to have like an ability to manipulate the baseball. I remember talking to Adam Ottavino, and he talked about like, throwing breaking balls into a bucket in his basement. It was always something that he worked on. Soroka's talked about some of the same thing. Like, were you a guy that did that come naturally to you? Were you a kid in your teenage years that was always you always just had a baseball in your hand, or what do you attribute your ability to manipulate a baseball to?
A part of it has always been there, a part of it has been an ability to spin the ball even from a young age, like in middle school or like 8th or ninth grade. I can't remember. I started really spinning it. And yeah, I think 8th grade. And it was just pretty natural from the beginning. And then obviously there's, I would say more than anything, just a lot of work.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll talk about it too once we get to the injury stuff, with the spinning of everything. But there's been a lot of things I've done, especially in the last 3 to 4 years, that have increased the spin on all my pitches and helped them become, more consistent with those profiles. So it's something that there was like a underlying ability always there. And then there's a lot of things I've done to just kind of build on that and try to fulfill that potential.
Right on. So let's fast forward to pro ball. So you worked your way through the minors reasonably quickly and made it to the big leagues. In 2013. And I'm curious. You were a good big leaguer. You were a regular big leaguer. You made 62 starts between 15 and 16. And then in 17, you just took a huge step forward. And, I'm curious, what is it that led to that? Because it was like an exponential improvement between 16 and 17 that took you to the next level. What do you, when you look back, like there was a, massive jump in strikeouts and a reduction in walks at the same time.
Yeah.
What changed?
Yeah. It was just kind of a lot of things culminating in one point. And, 15 was an okay year and still frustrating to me. 14 was bad. 16 was really bad. But in the middle of 16, I had Derek Johnson in Milwaukee, and he was a huge help to me as a pitching coach, whether it was about pitching or even like the mental side of it. So he had a lot to help me with and back me with. And, there was some mechanical changes that, I wanted to make in the middle of the season. And he really backed me on that. And even though it didn't show necessarily in 16, it seemed to kind of start syncing up going into 17. And I had a mindset of, I just had a different mindset in 17, even in spring. I was sick of the bad performance, obviously, and underperforming. And I've always, been told, and I know my actual stuff is good, like I have, with the 2 different breaking balls, a couple different fastballs, like I know the stuff is there. It was just always a command thing and sequencing, but, finally started to really read swings better, learn how to sequence, and my mechanical things started syncing up. The timing of it started getting better, and then you start building confidence off that. And I really came into spring training with not like almost like horse blinders on. It was just like a F everybody like mindset, and I was just like, I was pitching angry but like under control, because there was a lot of, I knew that spring and that year was kind of like one of my last chances to stick as a starter. And so like I did that offseason. Every offseason I was just doing everything I could, worked hard, and tried to clean up anything mechanical or timing I could. And then the mindset shifted in spring, and I just started attacking guys. I started knowing that I was better than the hitter. instead of being worried about giving up a hit or a walk or whatever it may be. And then really also like the other big piece was doing my own scouting reports. I'd watch all the video in between my starts, and I would scout the other team I was facing, their hitters and everything I needed to know personally about their swing and all that kind of stuff. And then, how it fits with me, and not just, rely on some like scouting packet that you might necessarily get. I think sometimes seeing the video and taking notes and doing it all on your own without seeing some of the notes is actually more helpful, helps stick in your mind. And then so in the game, it's easier to apply because it's like second nature to you.
Do you think, I know you and Brian Kaplan at our facility kind of talked quite a bit this offseason, and one of the lines I always think about with Cap that he drops is, and I've mentioned on some previous podcasts, he talks about you can't be analytical and competitive at the same time. And you're a heavily invested guy. Like you look at everything. Like there's no stone that's unturned, whether it's physically, whether it's analytically, scouting reports. But at the same time, you're a guy that obviously understands how to flip the switch and find that, the crazy in you. Were those hard things to separate over the years? Like, were there times when you found yourself being analytical when you're trying to be competitive, or did you always have clear delineations between the two?
No, yeah, I never really. I was always able to separate the two. For me, the studying of everything, and even I still do it to this day. After every outing, I get like all my TrackMan info. I talk to our pitching coaches and stuff. If there's ever any like little like tiny mechanical tweaks or video, we do like side by sides. It's pretty cool. So I just always trying to find any low hanging fruit that can, make anything more efficient, or whether it's sequencing or reading swings, and doing all that studying and homework. I just call it homework. It basically gives you it gives you that gut feeling when you're on the mound, and you throw something, you automatically have this gut feeling what you want to throw next, or like the sequence that you want to do for 1, 2, or 3 pitches. And that feeling becomes a lot more confident and a lot more consistent when you do your work, like your homework, and you know your stuff, how your stuff plays, and like the hitter, what he's trying to do, and you can kind of read his swings.
Yeah.
So it becomes fun whenever you can develop that ability, and it's hard. Some guys it happens quicker, some guys it takes longer. For me, it took longer, obviously. Not until 17, I felt like in game I was able to, sequence guys off swings, previous pitches, all that kind of stuff. So that's one of the fun things for sure.
I like it. Well, we'll go forward to like the negative part where we have to talk about the shoulder injury. So talk to me like, when it happened, how it happened, and then maybe we'll dig in on the lessons you learned.
Yeah, that was like first week of September, and at Wrigley, hit a ball off the wall and just got caught between first and second, slid back into first and dislocated my shoulder. Kind of popped it back in right there and through the next inning. But like Hill-Sachs lesion with, like some debris in the shoulder, and then there was a interior inferior labrum tear, posterior capsule, and rotator cuff were all torn. So had to get all those fixed, and rehab was tough. It was pretty, because there was so many things going on there. And I would say like 15, 16 months, somewhere around there is whenever it like really started feeling better. So it really didn't even start feeling better until going into camp of 19. And then that's when the elbow stuff started. So then miss basically all of 19 with elbow injuries. And then obviously going into camp of 20, and then in the camp of 20, my back got bad, and the back was, broken and so it's been, but the elbow and the back for me came from the shoulder, just compensations developed coming back from the shoulder, having to kind of relearn how to throw. And, so.
I think people often like talk about like one injury leads to another, but they never they never understand how things are so intimately linked. Like, what were the things that you felt like changing your delivery as you're obviously working back from an extensive shoulder surgery. You're trying to get your external rotation back. You're trying to let your arm
Yeah.
lay back in that clean window. What were the things that you found? Were you changing things in your lower half? Were you
I
laterally
was
tilting your trunk? What were you doing?
I was having to like hike my arm way up super high, like almost throwing straight over the top just because my shoulder, like I literally had to basically relearn how to throw. I mean, I had to gain all my external rotation back. Um, I mean, there was a lot of things. I think there was some like nerve stuff, like having to relearn just like how to fire again.
Mhm.
A lot of impingements. I mean, it was so yeah. I was like having to hike like way up, so I was kind of throwing myself into lower back extension before front foot strike, and then you don't rotate till after front foot strike. So already being in some back extension, I think I was just rotating around an already extended back, and that over time I think might have caused these stress fractures in my back.
Absolutely.
And then the elbow, since that that your midsection, your core is kind of like, I guess, the bridge to transfer that energy from your lower half to your upper half and through your arm. That bridge, I guess, wasn't doing its job. So then I was having to create the velocity or the spin with my upper half and my arm, which in turn was the elbow issues that I had gone through. So, yeah, looking back on it now, it's, you realize all that stuff that at the time I was doing what I absolutely had to do just to throw the baseball. I mean, I really had no other choice. It was either do it the way I did it or just
Yeah.
not play baseball.
And I think we've
So,
we've talked too. I mean, you're a hypermobile guy. I think a lot of people see someone who's 6'6", 250, and they don't bother to think that you could really be loose jointed. They assume you're going to be a linebacker, and for you that hypermobility can potentially get you into some bad patterns. You can get really rotational through your spine when you maybe want to be a little more stable. So that's obviously like one lesson that we kind of talked about this winter. What are some other things that you feel like you've learned? From not just the shoulder, but all those issues over the years. What's the lesson that you would impart to your younger Jimmy Nelson on that
oh
front?
man, there's the physical side. Obviously, that's a lot, but I mean, I could sit and talk about the mental side all day. It can be pretty miserable. It can be pretty miserable, but one thing that I kept having to tell myself is like, for as much as it hurts and all the crap that you go through, like it can't last forever, like the bad stuff and pain and all that, like it doesn't last forever. It's gonna come to an end at some point. So you just have to take some kind of peace in your mind that like, even, it was months and months that I was just like feeling terrible, and it just never got better. And then right when the shoulder gets better, it's the same, it's the same story with the elbow. So it's almost like that thing where it's like, oh, finally I'm over it. And then it happens again. And then it happened a third time, So, um, you just kind of learn how to manage expectations. You learn how to try to control what you can, just like when you're healthy and on the field. Try to control what you can with your rehab, your work, your recovery, your just everything. And you just got to be at peace, like no matter what happens when you come out of it. Like as long as you've done everything you can and you've done it the way you feel is right, I mean, you can be happy with however it turns out.
Absolutely. Maybe pivoting a little bit. I joke that you're a recovery rock star. Like you've obviously been through so much on the injury front that you've learned your lessons, and you've left no stone unturned in the quest to bounce back from them. I'm curious, what recovery initiatives have you tried, and what are the ones
Yeah.
that you feel like have yielded the best results for you?
I've tried everything. Obviously you have first you have to start with like your sleep and nutrition. So I've been there. I think nutrition's one for me that's always something that can be like easier to clean, like something that I could clean up on. But it's you also have to like manage your weight. Some guys are so focused on like losing or gaining a bunch of weight that I feel like their body, they don't allow their body to be in its like natural weight range, and that's can be unhealthy for recovery. And then, I mean, I got a hyperbaric chamber, cold tub, hot cold treatment or like contrast tubs. I do. I mean, I've had the H wave, soft tissue, needles. Um, I mean, you got cupping, you got uh, what other? I mean, we got, all kinds of stuff. And then that's not. I mean, there was several times that I had to get like injections too through through the rehab processes. Those probably like 4 different injections I had to get for my shoulder, just coming back from my shoulder because there was just so many impingements, so many flare ups, and so many times whenever we just had to like, lubricate the joint. So obviously I don't see injections as a recovery modality, but it's, it's just, it was another part of my process at least.
But what I loved about that is you listed off. I mean, you have every amenity in the world, obviously being in a major league organization and being a guy who's done all your homework, and you went to sleep and nutrition first. I think there's something to be said about that for the average, teenage ball player and his dad that are listening to this podcast and you're delivering the message that every parent wants to deliver to kids is eat well, sleep well, and good things happen.
Yeah, I mean, it's not. I mean, like I know me and Noah, like we have these $20,000 freaking oxygen chambers. Like nobody can. Like that's ridiculous. And like the tubs and the saunas, like that stuff's expensive, and it's not accessible to everybody. But it's also not like the top on the priority list either. So it's not like, a lot of people see all these fancy gadgets and they think that they're doing like something more because they're more expensive, but that's not necessarily it. I think that all those things can be pieces to the puzzle, but they're not like the majority of the puzzle. The majority of it is the sleep, the nutrition. Like I really don't drink alcohol. Alcohol is extremely rare for me. But yeah, I mean, like the sleep consistency, that stuff's big because just the hormones. Hormones is a big part of it, and that's one thing. With a lot of the mental struggles I went through with the shoulder and the elbow and those rehabs, and is like there was a lot of mental stress, and I think it kind of even messed up my hormones at one point to where I was having like these crazy weight fluctuations. I went from like 263 at the beginning of camp in 2018 to like 220 at the end of the season that year.
Wow.
And I mean, it was like, and I was just living in the weight room pretty much. And so it's, just making sure you get your sleep and, so that those hormones are normal and regulated, that's a big deal.
On the recovery side of things, what's your go-to? You go out and you throw an inning, 15 pitches, whatever it is. What are your options? I mean, obviously there's hydration, there's calories. I know you're a BFR guy. Like, what do you like to eat guys during the season?
Well, what we've been doing, what I've started doing in the bullpen is like after BP or after we play catch on the field, I usually do like 2 to 3 rounds of contrast, hot and cold, like usually like 40, 45 and 110 on my tubs. And then I go, and then obviously get ready for the game. And then if I throw, I have, like my little arm care routine afterwards. And we've been focusing on more eccentrics and concentric stuff. And then, we'll either hit a BFR if we're on the road, like a passive BFR, where we go like arm, leg, arm. And they actually have, I can't even remember what it's called, but they actually have like a monitor with the BFR that monitors like your oxygen levels or whatever, and like if like your blood oxygen levels and stuff during your BFR. So they know like when to take it off and all that. And so that's helped. And then also I've been doing some ARP wave stuff, like as well, just like on the arm when it's available, like at home after all the arm care stuff. And that seems to kind of kickstart the recovery process.
Right on.
But yeah, just the sleep. I mean, and then just trying to make sure I like wind my mind down too that night,
Mhm.
like to go to sleep. It's always tough for me the day I pitch to try to just wind down and sleep well.
Mhm.
Sometimes even, you think you're sleeping good, but you might not be getting into those good deep stages. So like a pre-bed routine or whatever you have to do to kind of wind your mind down is huge too. That always is like something that kind of can snowball over the course of a season too, because it's such a long
Mhm.
season. If you're going like one every 3 or 4 nights of getting like terrible sleep because you can't turn your head off, that can catch
Mhm.
up.
Absolutely. Now you rehab with Eric Schoenberg this offseason, but you also grew up as the son of a physical therapist. So you've been exposed to rehab folks in multiple major league organizations as well. I'm curious. We have physical therapists, we have doctors, we have athletic trainers, et cetera, that are listening to this
Yeah.
call. When you look back on the people who have helped you the most, like what do you see as key characteristics of the rehab specialists that you think are the most effective?
Um, I mean, there's been a lot, and like you said, I mean, shoot, I had a band board in my room when I was like 10. So, like, I mean, I think the ability to not just like put every injury or in every person like just in a category, like,
Yeah.
oh, here's your rehab, this is what it is, this is standard, like these are the protocols, and you adhere by them. Just being able to be fluid within the rehab, whether that means like pushing through some things or whether that means taking a step back. It's a dance. It's really like a dance. It's not just like a staircase.
Mhm.
Just whenever the PT has the ability to like see those things, see whenever things need to be adjusted or
Mhm.
something needs to be addressed, like if there's like an instability or something somewhere.
Yeah.
And then if they have to go off book, if they have to go off the program to do something that they know will benefit you better than just sticking to what your written out program is.
Yeah.
And then also there's another, I mean, another aspect of PTs. I think PTs and strength coaches might be like some of the best head doctors. I mean, you spend so much time around those people that um, you talk to them about things that are outside of the rehab or the actual like baseball. So
Mhm.
the those people also help a lot on the mental aspect and keeping the right perspective as well.
That's a great point. Switching gears a little bit, you're relieving right now, and for the longest time you were a starter.
Yeah.
What are the biggest adjustments for you? You talked a little bit about your pregame routine, but I'm also curious, like, have you had to narrow your pitch mix? What is it that you've adjusted the most, and how have you struggled or thrived with it?
Yeah, it's a lot different. And I mean, even in spring training, when you're in spring training, when you're going to throw, so you can still kind of prep maybe a little bit different because you're throwing that day. Whereas during the season, out of the bullpen, you don't know when you're throwing,
Mm-hmm.
so it's a little different. I'm lucky to have a lot of good guys out there. I mean, everybody out there is super tight knit and always willing to help with like routines and all that type of stuff. But basically, trying to figure out and kind of condense a prep routine for like before we throw on the field, like for practice type stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and then whatever having another routine for out in the bullpen whenever I'm trying to kind of time up or get ready for a possibility of having to throw. um, and it's for me, it's like as a starter you can do all that stuff, throw, and then go right into the game, whereas as a bullpen guy, you don't want to do all that stuff twice a day,
Mm-hmm.
so you got to kind of like split it up a little bit, figure out how much you need and how much your body needs and how it responds. And then you gotta, so far, just trying to listen to my body more. Like I might need a little spa day more than I did when I started because you have more days between starts. So just kind of like listening to your body, and then obviously the workouts and the training in between outings are going to be a little bit different as well.
I like it. All right, so once we get close to the end, we always roll out a like a lightning round.
Oh yeah.
So all right, so favorite pitcher to watch.
I think it was back when Arrieta was with the Cubs the first time, when he was like, what was it, like 14 through 16, when he was just like
Mm-hmm.
video game numbers. I think that was probably the last one that was pretty obvious. But either that or basically any of our starters.
There you go. It's a pretty good starting staff too. All right. How about favorite teammate of all time and why?
Oh, favorite teammate of all time. This is tough. There's going to be
You're allowed to. You can pick a couple.
There's going to be a lot of hurt feelings. I don't know, man. There's so many of them. I mean, I got DP here, with LA. He's awesome. And we got a lot of great guys here with LA. I had Woodruff was a good one back in Milwaukee. Aaron Hill was a great teammate. Blaine Boyer was a great one. I was with Garza for a while. Garza and Loesch kind of took me under their wings when I was a starter and I was younger. And so those guys did a lot for me as well. There's a long list. Hader in Milwaukee's a great dude. There's who else? Corey Knievel has been with me in Milwaukee and then followed me here to LA, so I can't get rid of him. God.
I like it, man. You made a lot of people happy.
No, there's a lot in there I'm missing too. But
all right, so we'll go to the next question. Those were good though. All right, so advice to a teenage Jimmy Nelson.
To a teenage me?
Yeah.
Oh my God. Stop trying to control things out of your control, I guess.
That's a pretty good one. What about a minor league Jimmy Nelson or early in major league Jimmy Nelson?
Probably the same thing.
Learn the lesson you should have learned as a teenager, right?
Yeah.
All right, and then last one. I know you're a continuous improvement guy. What's the next step for you to take forward in your development? And we've talked a lot about how you developed from high school to minor leagues and after college. And what's the next step as a big leaguer that you want to work on?
Well, for me, it's just really getting through this season healthy. Is health. I know when healthy, my stuff plays. I know I know how good I am and can be, and I know there's more in the tank. I know even right now throwing out of the pen, I know that there's more there. So I'm always trying to find little mechanical things that might make me a little more efficient without trying to add effort to any throws. And that'll be forever probably, but just getting through the season healthy, just staying healthy. It's been so long since I've had a full season healthy, and I just know that as long as I can stay healthy, which these guys have done a really good job of. One of the reasons I came back is because this medical and strength staff are so good. They've helped me stay healthy. I know good things will happen.
I like it, man. Well, folks can find you on both Twitter and Instagram. It's at Jimmy_J_Nelson. Psyched to see you back doing your thing in the big leagues, and certainly wish you well the rest of the season. Thanks so much for coming on the show, man. This was great.
Appreciate it, Eric. Thanks.
Thank you for joining us for another episode of the CSP Elite Baseball Development Podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, we'd be thrilled if you'd consider subscribing to the podcast and leaving us a review to read on iTunes. We welcome your suggestions for future guests and questions. Just email elitebaseballpodcast@gmail.com. Thank you for your continued support, and we'll see you next episode.